This is a general reading for entertainment purposes only. Watching my content does not constitute an advisory relationship such as therapy or legal counsel. I am not a certified medical or therapeutic professional, and my readings do not constitute professional advice. My readings are for confirmation of what you already intuitively know for yourself, not to get answers from me. General readings like this are like forecasting the weather for the entire planet. I can say that it is summer in the northern hemisphere, but summer looks very different from region to region. So please use your best judgment, take what resonates and leave the rest. And now let's get back to the video. Thank you. Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is Bee and I am the Moon Lodge Mystic. I'm here to talk about this week's full moon, which is happening in Taurus on Wednesday. I believe it's Wednesday the 7th. And I'm really excited for this new moon. There's a lot of things going on. I've written up a lot of notes, and frankly, I am pretty tired from all of the things I've been doing this week. So I'm mostly going to be reading from my notes today. And so to get started, we're going to give a quick summary of what happened during the last new moon. So the previous new moon was in Anuradha in Scorpio. This was a nakshatra that really put a lot of emphasis on selfless love in the type of friendship sense where, you devote yourself to another person without any expectations of receiving in return. This is mostly associated with friendship because we tend to treat our friends that way. We tend to be a lot more devoted to our friends where we just want to be around them. We don't really expect things from them the way that we expect things from our partners. And during that new moon, Venus and Mercury were combust, along with Venus and Mars in Parivartan Yoga, which is when they're in mutual exchange. Mars was in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, and Venus was in Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars. So that's a Parivartan Yoga. And the moon was debilitated in Scorpio. This put a lot of focus on where we feel most vulnerable in our relationships. As we mentioned previously, when the moon is dark like that and when there's all this combustion going on, especially in Scorpio, where we're feeling really deep emotions that can sometimes bring up dark emotions and disappointment and resentment, and where we feel really vulnerable. And the combustion is kind of like creating rawness because we're feeling scorched by the rays of the sun. So you might have been feeling triggered, or the way we were relating with each other through the way we were communicating and the way we were trying to connect could have left us feeling really raw, or even reminded us of some resentments that maybe needed to be worked on. Scorpio really calls on us to transform by showing us where our trigger points are. And when it comes to Anuradha, this is where we surrender our ego in pure devotion to the object of our passion, whether that be a friend, a spouse, a job, or a project. It'll depend on where Scorpio falls in your chart, what this materializes as. For example, if you are Leo ascendant, then Scorpio is going to fall in your 4th house. So this lunar cycle is going to be very much about how you surrender and devote yourself to your home and family, and how that relates to your career in Taurus in the 10th house. And now that we've come to full moon of this cycle, which is happening in Taurus, we're really going to, for those Leo ascendant people, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on the career and what's going on at work, and how prosperity and how our drive is shaping our work, basically. In summary, the new moon showed us where we feel vulnerable or have contributed to issues concerning the house of Scorpio in your chart. It really brought out an opportunity to reflect on how we are showing up in our relationships, how we are measuring ourselves and others against our ideals and expectations. Mars and the combustion of Mercury and Venus were really heating things up in Scorpio, leading to irritability and possibly some conflicts and hurt feelings. We have the Mars making an aspect onto the Sun, which is, our personal power, but it can also be our ego. And with that dark moon, it was just really kind of emphasizing on where our needs weren't being met, or how we were contributing to situations that resulted in our needs not being met, particularly in relationships. Ideally, a person goes through these kinds of transits, and if they are striving to live a consciously aware life, they pause and think about how their own thoughts and behavior are contributing to conflicts and dissatisfaction showing up in their lives. This is where Mars and Sun can really shine in their highest aspects. By taking accountability for our own behavior, we are claiming our own power to make meaningful changes that get us closer to where we are striving to be. So with the themes of Anuradha again, surrendering ego, which has these often unrealistic or selfish expectations for how things ought to be, and accepting people and situations for what they are, and being okay with that, and being able to love somebody and really devote yourself to them or a project or something like that, or even yourself, regardless of their flaws. Transforming passion into compassion. Passion is where we have strong desire to indulge ourselves and fulfill our dreams and fantasies, and when people or situations cannot live up to our ideals, we have the opportunity to transform passion into the kind of compassion that Anuradha speaks of, where we give love and appreciation unconditionally. We let people off the hook for fulfilling our desires because we've claimed that power for ourselves. And because we've done that, we are able to give unconditional love and acceptance to ourselves, and we don't become resentful when we don't receive it from others. So that's where Anuradha is all about. Really, you have to show your self-love, and that releases others from the obligation to love you the way you need to be loved. And that's how we are able to step into this devotional aspect that Anuradha talks about. So onto the full moon. We have the moon in Taurus in the nakshatra of Rohini. Sun is currently in Jyestha in Scorpio, and moon and Mars are going to be in the most exact conjunction that you could possibly get. So since the new moon, the sun has now moved into Jyestha, yes. Mercury and Venus are now in Sagittarius and are no longer combust, thank goodness. Mars is still retrograding and is in exact conjunction with the moon, as I mentioned. Now the moon is exalted in Taurus, and Rohini is the most beloved wife of all the nakshatras of the moon. The nakshatras are the 27 lunar mansions. It's the fixed stars that make up the zodiacal constellations, and the moon spends one day in each nakshatra, and Rohini, each nakshatra represents these stars that are the beloved wives of the moon, Chandra, and Rohini is his favorite. Mars and moon together are forming a powerful Chandra-Mangala yoga. Mars is typically in detriment in Taurus, but due to the moon's present in exaltation, this does quite a bit to ameliorate the effects of that. Mars is able to receive help from the moon to overcome the challenges of his detriment, which in Taurus is usually about overindulgence in sensual experiences, comforts, materialistic desires, etc., which in a way renders Mars kind of inert and lazy. Like Taurus is really that quintessential, like Cleopatra on a chaise lounge with her servants feeding her grapes and niceties and all that. That's Taurus. So there's a lot of inertia there because you're just sitting there in your yummy feelings, which is great. It's not bad. But Mars is very action oriented. So when Mars is in Taurus, he becomes kind of lazy, and so we become a little inert. Think about when you feel really inspired to start a new health kick, working out and eating lean, then the holidays hit and you want to sample all the pies, eat Thanksgiving leftovers, sit around with family watching movies or football, whatever. Before you know it, the new year hits and you haven't hit the gym since October. That's what Mars in Taurus is like. And it's not necessarily wrong. Like sometimes you can't always be on 24/7. It's okay to indulge. Just watch out for overindulgence with Mars and Taurus. And like we said, we have the moon now in exaltation in Taurus. That's going to help Mars a lot. So the way it helps is moon represents like family and security and, you know, feeling safe within your home. So maybe if we go back to that analogy about the health kick that's kind of been put on pause, the moon showing up in Taurus is going to help Mars by, like, maybe your mother or your sibling decides that they want to join you in your health kick, and by doing it together you receive the support of your family, and so you still are able to work on your goals. So, and then we throw the Chandra-Mangala yoga in there, which is a very auspicious yoga that grants success through great willpower and boldness. And this is going to make this a very powerful full moon experience. As we've mentioned a few times now, the full moon is occurring in the nakshatra of Rohini, which represents the blushing bride or a woman during her first menses. A very powerful nakshatra for fertility and creativity. This nakshatra is ruled by the deity Brahma, who is the great creator. During the new moon reading, I was picking up on some themes around pregnancy and womb health, and that definitely could be getting emphasized here with the full moon. Perhaps like overcoming any health challenges, or just finding a way to really connect with that and relate to your womb in a very healthy way that promotes fertility and ease and comfort. I am really curious if anyone watching has been trying to get pregnant or is birthing forth some kind of creative project because of the last moon's emphasis on, you know, connect with the womb and a health checkup. That's what we got in some of the oracle cards. If you don't have a womb, that could easily be about creative endeavors. That can be about like what wants to be brought forth into your life, and what can you do to facilitate the birth and be a midwife to a creative idea. I think this full moon is really going to bring us in touch with the Nine of Cups we pulled from the previous reading. The Nine of Cups is often about the fulfillment we feel from material abundance, which is definitely on brand for Taurus. Gatherings or feasts with loved ones is the kind of vibe being supported by this moon, but also creative projects and work could be getting some recognition or support from others right now. Of course, we do have to consider the dynamic with the sun in Jayestha, a nakshatra concerning the possession of great power and the pitfalls one experiences when intoxicated by that power. With the aspect from Jupiter in Pisces and Mars in Taurus, there is a risk that one might become too consumed with possessing material power, such as wealth and extravagant purchases. If there is one warning I could give right now, it would be to watch out for temptation to overindulge or become too fixated on using power purely for fulfilling selfish desires. If you find yourself coming into a windfall of abundance or increased power, of course it is okay to treat yourself a little, but don't neglect your loved ones or community either. Like, don't be thinking about, don't come into a windfall or a great successful opportunity and only be concerned with what you're getting out of it. We want to come back to the lessons of Anuradha, which is about devotion and being able to express that to other people, and of course also expressing that to ourselves. And so that's why I say it's okay to treat yourself. Definitely reward yourself if you've been working hard and you're seeing the results of that bring you success. You deserve to be rewarded for that. But also take care to include others in this celebration. So use your power in service of a greater cause that inspires you. That's really going to make a good use of this Jupiter aspect. Jupiter is trining the water houses right now. So that would mean Cancer and Scorpio, as well as, you know, he's sitting in Pisces. And Jupiter can really, with the sun being in Scorpio and being really concerned with what drives passion and what drives advocacy and what really gets someone enthusiastic. Well, the sun is really about like courage and leadership, and Scorpio is also about passion and courage. And this is where, with the Chandra-Mangala yoga and this interaction between the sun and the moon and Mars, we can see like some really strong pulls towards activism. And that can look like, it doesn't have to be political activism, it can just be about taking up a cause that feels really meaningful to you, of any sort, whether that's a cause to bring more happiness into the world by being more creative, by producing content that brings other people smiles because you feel that it's really important and inspirational to put more of that into the world. Or, maybe you are a literal activist and you are seeing the suffering in the world and you really want to do something about it. Maybe you just see that there's a lot of litter in the park that you really like to go to and you feel like, hey, no one's picking up this litter, I'm going to pick it up. It's a whole lot of different ways that this type of energy can manifest, and it really just comes down to what you're feeling called to. But Jupiter's aspect, like while he can kind of inflate the sun and make the sun a little too idealistic and a little not grounded, as long as you're following your heart and your inspiration, that should work out pretty okay, especially because Saturn is still aspecting Jupiter and kind of brings a little bit of a grounding influence to Jupiter. Mercury and Venus in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter, is also going to be beckoning one to look at the bigger picture, which is not particularly easy for these two planets, particularly Mercury. Mars is also aspecting Sagittarius from his position in Taurus, which is really going to be kind of driving that whole discussion that we were having about idealism and finding a cause that inspires you. Mercury and Venus right now are in Mula, and it's associated with often destruction and misfortune. And it's kind of like the ground zero event that brings inspiration, right? So usually there's some type of tragedy or something that we witness or go through that becomes really dear to us, and through that we forge a cause in the world. Like, I grew up with a lot of loved ones who were in foster care, and I really saw how the abuse that they suffered and the lack of a stable home, how that impacted them. And because that was so deeply personal to me, I mean, I had family members who this really affected the way that they were able to relate to me. And because of that, I've always felt a bit more inspired to do something about trauma care, specifically like psychological and interpersonal trauma. So that's kind of where this can be used as an opportunity to find something that really drives you to make positive changes in the world and to show up in the world in a way that empowers everyone around you. So, in summary, we are concluding this cycle with the full moon. This is the climax to our lunar cycle. And there's a lot of opportunities for taking inspired action in your life and community, and for being creative, finding creative solutions to problems that you see and are moved by. I think that if you've been putting in the work to really devote yourself to something that inspires you and really brings more peace and love into this world, you're going to be seeing a huge payout from that during this lunar cycle, because we have this moon in Rohini, and with the Chandra-Mangala yoga, people are going to be feeling a lot of vitality during this time. And it's up to you to choose what you do with that. Whether you do it to, go crazy, spending all your money on shopping for the holidays for yourself, or whether you use some of that prosperity to think about the other people in your life. And then, of course, using this Scorpio type of energy to really examine our vulnerabilities and face them. You know, that's the courage of Mars, and the courage of Scorpio and the sun here is facing your inner demons and using the love that we cultivate from Anuradha to really show compassion towards yourself so that you can show compassion towards others. And with that, I think I'm ready to move on. I do have tarot cards and some oracle cards here, so let's do the tarot cards. First we have the King of Swords. Next we have the Three of Pentacles. And then we have the Page of Pentacles. I see the King of Swords and I heard, put down your sword. This is a time to really look and assess a situation. The poppies here are bringing in peaceful, restful energy. The King of Swords is able to take a critical eye to a situation without being destructive. He knows when to put his sword down, and through the sword he's created a perch for himself. So he's able to use his mind to gain perspective on a situation. He's perched out and he can look out rather than being stuck in the weeds down on the ground. And the Three of Pentacles is again all about community, and we see these poppies again showing up. I think that by looking out, we're going to be able to see something about this situation that brings us new clarity into our communal role. The Three of Pentacles traditionally depicts three people who are working on a church, and we've got someone who's the carpenter, another person who's the priest, and I think another one is maybe just the layman who's going to be in the church worshiping. And the message from this image is that each person who's participating in the building of that church, they know what role they play, and they play it, happily, they play it to their fullest. And here we have the wolves and the deer, and the deer is prey and the wolves are predators, and they work in a kind of, there's an ecosystem at play, and it's self-correcting. And it doesn't need to, no one needs to think about how to correct it. They just exist and they do what they feel called to do. A deer follows its instincts to be a deer and to act the way that deer do. The same thing can be said about wolves. And the wolves will hunt the deer, and if the deer populations become overhunted, then the wolf populations, they end up starving and dying off a little bit, which allows the deer to continue to procreate and rebuild its numbers, and that creates opportunity for the wolf population to grow again because they have so much bounty to be able to hunt and feed their young ones. And so there's no thinking and trying to control every little detail and make sure that things go a particular way. There's a trust that, like, if I just do what I feel in my bones I'm supposed to do, I will be making the appropriate contribution to this world and community. And sometimes that's really the best thing that you can do, is just live the way that you feel instinctually called to live. And by doing that, it doesn't matter if you end up famous. It doesn't matter if you end up living in a hut in the middle of nowhere. Just by having done that, your contribution to the collective experience of humanity is valuable and shows people a way towards healing. And I think that we have the Page of Pentacles here, and that this is taking this into consideration is going to bring opportunities for us that we can reach out and grasp and have fun with. You know, octopi are very playful creatures. They're very intelligent too. So, you know, it's not the kind of intelligence of the King of Swords. It's a more playful, natural kind where they're not trying to, you know, we're not out here solving nuclear equations and whatnot. We're just living a different type of intelligence, an earthy intelligence that's natural, that comes naturally without having to be forced or thought about or problem solved. And with that, we have our moon card. We have full moon in Sagittarius. Look at the bigger picture. So I'm going to put that right up here. Okay, I think that can be seen. So the bigger picture is really right here in front of us. It's this greater ecosystem and community and the way that we are participating in it, and how the way we show up has ripple effects throughout the whole collective. And now I have a lot of self-care cards. There are 7 that came out. This deck really just wanted to spit these out this week. And I just want to say, you don't have to do everything that comes out in these cards. It's suggestions for things to consider that could be beneficial right now. If you are experiencing this full moon and you come upon challenges, or you just have a bunch of spare time and you're like, what's the best way for me to make use of this time right now that I have? These are some ideas to follow. But first I'm going to take a pause to drink my tea. Okay. The first card we have is use your hands. And then we have alone time. And we have journal. We have hydrate. We have connect with the earth. Chanting. And then soak in a bath. I'm seeing lots of water in these cards. So when hydrating is always important. Mars can be very drying, as so can the sun. Connecting with water can be really helpful. For connecting with the moon rules our tides and is quite a watery planet in its own accord. And connecting with bodies of water can really, you know, in a meditative sense, can really bring you some peace and just being able to ease into flow. Chanting is a great way to clear the throat chakra and to invite spiritual energies into your life. And journaling, of course, is always recommended. I journal daily, so I think that if you have never journaled before, or if you struggle to start journaling, this is a really great sign that if you try starting now, you can maybe really commit to it. I struggled with journaling for years until finally it became something that I couldn't negotiate anymore. I had to start journaling to be able to process my emotions. And what I did was I went out and bought a really nice journal that made me really happy to look at. Ooh, excuse me. Finding a journal that just makes you happy to look at it is really helpful, as well as like treating yourself to a really nice pen. And that's what got me started. And once I started, I haven't stopped. It's been years now, and I journal every single day, at least 3 pages. And it's just really important for connecting with yourself. And you have to connect with yourself in order to identify what your needs are and to be able to start figuring out how you're going to meet those needs. If you never check in with yourself because you have a busy lifestyle or something like that, how are you going to know whether you're feeling frustrated or whether you need more space from a relationship or whether or not you need some relaxation time? You need to carve out some time to soak in the bath. Taking a moment every day or even at least every other day just to journal and see where you're feeling is a really great gift to give to yourself. And then using your hands, um, this is another thing where it's like Mars is very tactile, and getting into crafts is a really great way to make use of this Rohini, this Taurus energy where we're really creative and fertile right now. And then, of course, connect to the earth. Always great advice. Go out, walk in nature. This morning, I took time just to walk with my dog outside. It has snowed, and so it's really cold, but I really wanted to just see the sunrise. And that was my way of connecting with earth, was just being in the stillness of early morning and looking at the sunrise. You can connect to earth in lots of different ways. If you have house plants, that's definitely a really great way to connect with the earth. I know not a lot of people have a lot of outdoorsy places that they can visit. I'm really lucky that I live in the Pacific Northwest. We basically have forests everywhere we go. But if that's not available to you, just having some house plants and maybe checking on them, uh, it's it's really common to overwater or underwater your plants, and maybe just sticking your fingers in the dirt and feeling the dirt of the soil in your houseplants and making an assessment on what they might need. They might need some more water. You might need to back off on the watering a little bit, or even just taking them out of the pot and checking on their roots. That can be a really great therapeutic activity. It's not just therapeutic because you're grounding yourself through the experience of interacting with a plant, but it also releases important microbiomes into your immune system and helps you be more healthy. And now we have our affirmation. I always like to end on an affirmation. We have, I am part of the harmonious whole, as we all are. I know I am one with all life. I am the beauty and joy of the universe, expressing and receiving. So, thank you so much for joining me. I know this one was a little rushed because I'm trying to be gentle with myself and not try and push myself beyond my limits. And I've definitely been rubbing up on my limits this week. And after this, I'm treating myself to a massage and taking it slow the rest of the week. And I hope that everyone else has an opportunity to do the same thing, or, get really inspired to action if that's how you're feeling, and that you are full of energy and vitality. I guess that's, one of two ways this moon can really go. Like if you've been, like in my situation where you've really been giving it your all these past couple weeks, this Taurus energy is going to be a really great reprieve from all that and allow you to really sit and restore yourself and indulge and rejuvenate yourself. And others of you might be feeling more called to action and feel like a really burst of productive energy with this Chandra-Mangala yoga. So whatever way it manifests for you, take care, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.